I've got a sort of a philosophy that all of our work flows from. And it's a pretty simple one. When we apply it to kids, it goes like this. Kids do well if they can.
Oh.
Not kids do well if they want to, but kids do well if they can. And what that means is if a kid could do well, they would do well. And now substitute that word kid with adult, with spouse, with partner, with coworker, with mother-in-law, you name it. People do well if they can.
It's true.
Everybody wants to do well and wants to have healthy, happy relationships with others. There's just things getting in the way sometimes. You know, to boil it down a little bit, when somebody's pissing you off with their behavior, you want to sort of tell them what to do. And the reality is, they're never going to listen to you unless you start by listening to them. So when you shift your focus and you say, kids do well if they can, people do well if they can, what you're saying is, if that person could do well, they would do well. And if they're not, something else is getting in their way. And I personally don't buy that it's just a lack of motivation. And now here's where the research comes in. Because we have about 50 years of research in the neurosciences that has shown beyond the shadow of a doubt that people who struggle to manage their behavior, they actually don't lack the will to behave well. What they lack are the skills to behave well. Skills in areas like problem solving, flexibility, frustration tolerance. And I can give you fancier names for those things, clinical names.
Please don't. Because because this is if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you're seeing my mouth slowly open wider and wider as my jaw is hitting the ground, because this is the simplest explanation and the most empowering and encouraging explanation I have ever heard for how to change the way you look at other people in your life, whether you're a parent like we both are and you're trying to motivate your kids, or you're dating somebody and you're like, boy, I wish you'd take better care of yourself. And if you start there, instead of judging a lack of willpower or discipline or motivation, you go, okay, well, what are the conditions for doing well?
There's a good analogy, a precedent that I like to remind myself of, because I think we've made a ton of progress there, and I know this will resonate for you.
Yeah.
You know, like when you and I were in school, we didn't know much about learning disabilities.
True.
Right? So if you had dyslexia when you were our age growing up, and you were struggling to read, people didn't say, I wonder what she's having a hard time with. They thought that you were either lazy or dumb. And if they thought you were lazy, what would they do? They would try to motivate you to work harder to read, which, you know, the sad reality, the ironic reality here is, who's working harder than anybody else in the classroom to learn how to read? The kid to whom it's not coming naturally.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think we lost a lot of kids by sort of teaching them that we thought they weren't working hard enough, when actually they were working overtime, and what they were struggling with was skill, not will.
Now, I see you brought something.
Yes.
What is that letter that you have there?
Well, so this is a girl I worked with in the Boston public schools who was having a really hard time both at home and at school, managing her behavior. And she both was a sort of what I call an exploder and an imploder.
What does that mean?
So exploder means like she would scream, she turned over her desk, she would, throw things, she'd hit other people. An imploder means she would quietly put her head down and cry. She would shut down. And to me, by the way, all these are different flavors of saying, I'm having a hard time handling something with the skills I have.
Yeah.
Why would a kid choose to do any of those things if they could handle the situation better? Kids do well if they can.
Why does this get you so emotional?
Because just kids being misunderstood and mistreated. And it doesn't have to be that way. We know better. We know better. We have to
do better.
We have to do better. And I don't blame us, because this is how it works in history. We learn. Conventional wisdom gets overturned, and we learn better. And it takes a while until we change our practices. And we're in that period now, which is why I'm thankful for you helping spread the word here, because we can shift our thinking and do better here. We don't have to lose kids. And I just looked at this girl's letter, and I've seen this a million times. And it still makes me emotional every time because this girl was struggling so much. And she wrote this for me. And it says, "My brain is idiotic. I make stupid mistakes. I mess everything up. I always make a mess and get hurt and ruin everything." And that's a kid we're trying to motivate to behave better? You got to be kidding me. I mean, how we missed the mark. This kid, more motivated than anybody on the face of the earth to behave well. Why? Because she didn't want to feel this way. So she already has all the internal motivation in the world. The last thing we want to do is send her the message, we don't think you're trying hard enough.